there's a lot of confusion about spirits, uh, particularly in areas where people are beer drinkers and not necessarily, or wine drinkers, but not necessarily spirits. And they don't really grasp, they know there's a difference, but they don't really know what it is. So one thing I've encountered a lot too is that when I say we distill alcohol, people will say, oh yeah, I have a nephew, he distills alcohol. And I said, oh really, what's the name of their company? He goes, oh no, they do it in the basement. And that's interesting because there's a lot of that. The problem is you can't do that. And this is the story, this history is basically how we got started in this business. Alcohol was probably the first power drink, or some kind of alcohol. The Egyptians, they say, did concoct potions and certain types of spirits. They can tell from what they documented. They can't tell how they did it exactly or what ingredients they used to the letter, but we know they did. But we better not do it, not without a license. Not many people know George Washington had a still. So did Thomas Jefferson. So did most of the founders of our country, distilled alcohol on a regular basis. And there's a good reason for it. They were farmers and they raised crops. And the thing about crops are they're cyclical. And the crops will mature, they'll be harvested, they'll be put away, and if you're lucky, they don't rot in the bins before you get them sold. When you distill alcohol, you distill it from these grains, and in so doing, you convert it into something that's smaller, easier to move, and it's non-perishable. Its shelf life is indefinite. And this is one of the things that is probably the most important thing about alcohol that's misconstrued. Unlike a wine, wines keep better than beer, but of course anyone knows that beer or ale will keep weeks, maybe months, but certainly no longer than that, or it's probably not good to drink. So the colonists found it was liquid gold. For them, they actually use it as a currency. But anytime people use anything as a currency, generally speaking, even back to the Egyptian days, there was someone there to find a way to tax it. And this is no big coincidence. Taxes have to be levied for a reason, and they need to be paid for a reason. But nonetheless, the first taxes were levied against the colonists because of the War of Independence and what we borrowed as a country to fund that war. A lot of that came from France, a lot of people don't know, but we had to pay it back. So Alexander Hamilton, who was our treasurer, decided a good way to do this was to take all these colonists that were stilling liquor in their barns and in their outbuildings and levy a tax against it. Well, you can see where that would cause problems because you have colonists who are fiercely independent. They've just come from a country or a group of countries in which there was a lot of regulation. So they wanted to be done with that regulation. So that tax was levied and it resulted in a war. This was called the Whiskey Rebellion. And a lot of people have no idea that it was a full-fledged war. So in short, this results in a law that stands to this day, which is there. If anybody wants to jot it down, or they can actually go to the video and find it. They have very severe penalties for distilling liquor yourself. Now, this is my start point, and I see I have 1 minute. But basically, this is where my brother and I got the bright idea that, distilling a few quarts of liquor here or there wasn't going to be a big deal. But you find out right away, if you verbalize much about it, that you're going to hear repercussions from it, which we did. Without going into any detail in that, being that we're kind of philosophical engineers, we decided, hey, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it legal. So we took on the challenge, and we didn't know what kind of a challenge it was. And like a lot of people, such as yourselves, you start in a business and you go, well, this is going to demand this much of me. But then you find it demands a lot more. So we designed a plant, and we started buying equipment and lease space, and we bought new, we bought used, and what we couldn't buy, we MacGyvered, which was the fun part, at least for me. So that's, I think, my 6 minutes. In short, we're going to start doing tours and tastings in March because we're now perfectly legal. We have all of our permits. Our state and federal applications are all approved. So there's really nothing we can do now in terms of liquor that would be in production that would be illegal.